Hey everybody, welcome inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. This is the practice report. It's brought to you by Byers Auto. I am Austin Ward. That is Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, and Jeremy Birmingham. Training camp rolling along for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Scrimmage was a few days ago. Now the defensive linemen took their turn for a little bit of media day with Larry Johnson and the Rushmen. So let's just start right there, Berm. I think I'm going to say that Javonte Jean-Baptiste is the most improved defensive player maybe on this roster, and definitely one of the most improved media personalities. I saw him about a week ago, caught my eye, told Spencer about this, when they had an open practice and he goes out there into the middle of a huddle and he gets to be the one that called up and talked. I never would have thought that would have happened 3 years ago. Never thought he would put on weight to be up to 255 pounds. I really believe that this guy is, if he's not a starter, he's going to be the most important guy off the bench for Ohio State.
I got a glimpse of that this summer when Ohio State had one of their recruiting camps in here, and they had all the campers gathered around and they were introducing Ryan Day, and Ryan Day called up Javonte Jean-Baptiste to talk to the kids, and he was talking to them about the importance of just waiting your time, waiting, giving yourself, the opportunity to develop. And you can see it with a guy like Javonte, but some of it is like, I don't know if he's the most improved media personality. Some of it, we just never got to talk to him before. And so that group, I think that's the big takeaway for me today, is how mature the entire defensive line group is, and from top to bottom, even the guys we didn't get to talk to, the thing that everyone was talking about Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau today was how they're handling things like professionals. They come in here, they do the work. They're not, those typical young guys that need that sort of push and that urging along. Yeah,
I don't think it should come as any surprise that Larry Johnson has those guys prepared for what they do out there on those outdoor fields, and then coming into the media session. I thought it was pretty impressive, as you said, Berm, how professional that group really handled it.
Yeah, I was impressed by the way Tyreke Smith handled his situation, because he could still be bitter about getting the positive COVID test in the national championship game. No, he opened up and talked about it. Javonte Jean-Baptiste opened up and talked about his maturity. Zach Harrison is a completely different person than what we saw a couple years ago, but really he's not a different person. It's just the way he handles himself. The way all of these guys operate is just on a different level, almost than even the rest of the units on this team. The defensive line just looks so mature. I think they get that energy from Larry Johnson. They put it onto the field, they put it on the practice field, they bring it to the interviews, they bring it to the meeting rooms, and that's why this unit, I think, is the best defensive line in America, maybe one of the best individual units in the country. It's because of the way Larry Johnson handles everything in this building.
Yeah, but past that, one of the reasons they're going to be maybe one of the elite defensive line groups in the country, in my opinion, is the fact, for example, Teron Vincent looks like he's totally healthy for the first time as a Buckeye. That brings on a whole new dimension for them, trying to swap those guys between three technique and nose, and who's going to play well. You got Haskell Garrett, who is a bona fide leader. And you were talking about Zach Harrison. Zach Harrison to us always has seemed a little bit late, not laid back, maybe step back as far as like speaking to us. But he says behind the scenes, he's always been kind of effervescent. But we all know the impression he made on Mickey Marotti when he was being recruited as being almost a wallflower and not speaking. Now he's stepping up. He's being a leader. He's got some things in the pipeline in the NIL department that's probably helping him from a speaking up standpoint. But
sure,
these guys are all matured, have all matured right in front of our eyes. And now you're going to see, I think the fruition of that is going to be something spectacular when you add on there, really right now, the sprinkles, which are JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. I mean, this is a fantastic looking group.
It's a weird feeling for me, because I'm not sure, as we stand here right today, whatever, in the middle of August, that I know the answer is Larry Johnson, and I know that you give him the benefit of the doubt and you assume that it's going to be one of the best units in America. I think there are more questions about this defensive line than I anticipated having, and I hear everything you're saying, and I agree with all of it. But if Zach Harrison, he's still got to go out and prove that. He's not done it, so he's unproven in that regard. I know he didn't have a full scrimmage on Saturday to go out and show what he could do, so that's unclear. I'm talking about Javonte Jean-Baptiste and his improvements. He's still got to go do it and play with that weight and translate from a training camp into camp. Tyreke Smith, I've been talking about him as a future first-round pick now for 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, he has to stay fully healthy. He missed a practice last week, and he says he's fine, and it was just maintenance day. I fully believe that. There's no problem with that. Teron Vincent, okay. It's got to go do it for the first time. All these guys, you know what Larry Johnson will bring out of them, but this is one of the first times I can really remember you just look at the Rushmen and you're like, all right, but I don't know it for sure yet.
Who's it going to be? It's going to have to be someone, and we got a glimpse of that at Tyreke Smith in the Clemson game last year, what he can do when he's a fully armed and operational Death Star, you know? Like, he was a problem for Clemson. And I think one of the guys we didn't talk to today is sort of my dark horse for the season is Ty Hamilton. I just think that Ty Hamilton, if you see him walking around here, I remember watching him when he came in here in March of 2019 as a recruit, and Ohio State had just offered him, and I'm like, what are they offering that kid for? And you look at him now, and he's 290 pounds, and he has developed into his brother's frame, into what Devon did here as a fifth-year senior at Ohio State. And I think he's one of those guys that really is going to step up. But you're right. I mean, this is not a position group that has a lot of proven, depth. It has a ton of depth. It's probably the deepest full group end and tackle Larry Johnson's had. But someone has to step up and do it consistently.
I'm just looking at the fact that these guys came in, many of these guys came in ballyhooed, and for whatever reason they haven't gotten to their potential yet, full potential yet, but you just get the sense now that like a Zach Harrison is ready to launch. I mean, really, from everybody you talk to, he's a different kind of player than he was 2 years ago, without a doubt. And Teron Vincent is finally healthy. We've been waiting for him to see what he's all about. You know, yeah, he can get banged up, next practice or 2 games from now. But I'm just talking, we're talking about on potential. Yeah, you still got to step out there and do it on the field in big-time games. But these 2 freshmen they've got are the best tandem freshmen at defensive end of anybody in the country on a potential standpoint. Mm-hmm. They still got to play, but like my friend over here is talking about, I mean, the potential is there for this to be a very good unit.
One of the things that kind of strikes me about this unit is in 2018 they had Nick Bosa. In 2019 they had Chase Young. They had a guy they could just constantly rely on. Like, you're always going to get something special from those guys. Last year it was Jonathan Cooper, and he was a really good player, but he wasn't that transformational guy. And I think this group right now had to learn to turn into those kind of transformational guys, whereas it was almost like a procession, like the next guy's just up to do it. The next guy is up to do it. This reminds me more of the 2017 unit in a way where there's not one singular guy that's going to take over a game, but if you put all these guys on the field at once, Haskell Garrett's going to draw a double team every now and then. Noah Potter looks like a guy who could really make an impact, and that frees up everything for those guys on the outside. So there's not really a transformational guy in the room, but at the same time, that could be a good thing for all these guys as a collective.
I think for an upside, there's way more of those guys this year than there were last year. I think it just comes down to productivity and health, and that's ultimately right. When you say, like, why haven't they done it? It's because none of these guys have been able to stay on the field, and that's what is the old saying? Availability is best ability.
Best
right?
ability, yeah.
For a kid like Zach Harrison, he took a lot of flack last year, and maybe I'm just in the complete minority here. I thought he played really well when he played last year, but he just didn't play a lot.
Well, I think there was the expectation that, okay, into year 2, he's going to be the starter, and he played in that Fiesta Bowl. He was the first guy out on the field, and that didn't happen. And so you latch on to Larry Johnson, and Spencer's talking about 2017. Like, the way he rotated through those 4 when you thought there would be a clear pecking order. I mean,
well, that was Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Tyquan Lewis,
Sam Hubbard. Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty darn good group of NFL players.
Yeah. So I'm struggling to get exactly to where Spencer was going with that one, with guys that you knew would go get it, but
Maybe it's just because they're all unproven. I mean, if you look at that 2017, those guys were all unproven.
We're talking potential here.
Yeah, so, but to your point, as you go on there, Berm, like Ty Hamilton and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, on the guys that are being scrolled through to my right here on the video board, they were named captains for the scrimmage according to those pictures, which Ohio State didn't just hand us a list of that. So if Ty Hamilton is at that point, obviously that's a big deal. And I'm just looking at it, maybe I'm making too much out of removing Tommy Togiai and the uncertainty that I think there may be at nose.
I think that's legit, your uncertainty.
And Tyler Friday, that would push Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau into the lineup before they may have been ready. But because that's just, you had those 4 veterans at defensive end, different conversation. Togiai, an NFL player at nose, next to Haskell Garrett, different conversation.
We saw what happened to them against Alabama when suddenly Tommy Togiai was not available. I mean, and obviously Tyreke Smith, but I mean, Jerron Cage, played. I don't know. Did he play well in that game? I'm trying. Yeah.
I mean, he played fine. That game was a wash from the start. I mean, you lost your entire defense.
The bottom line is that, we're talking about Spencer now. I mean, I'm talking about the potential of this group now that they have one more year under them for the most part, and from a health standpoint, I don't think Teron Vincent has ever been healthier since he's been here than he is now. I am really looking forward to what that guy brings to the table as a healthy force on the inside. So those are things that are, yeah, you're kind of projecting at this point because it is preseason.
They're going to be tested right out of the gate. I mean, Minnesota is going to try to grind the football down the field. And I think for a lot of these guys, it's just going to be about stepping up and making sure they make a play. And the one thing that this team has this year that they didn't have a year ago is, at least hopefully, the chance to play games against Akron. You're going to get an opportunity for JT, Tui Malolo, and Jack Sawyer and these other young guys to get some meaningful reps in games that they weren't able to get a year ago for the young guys. And that should help build this team over the next few months. But as we've talked about multiple times, with all of the inexperience at linebacker, all of the question marks in the secondary, the defensive line better step up.
Those games are also important for, even Zach Harrison. You're talking about, you believe he played better than I got it credit for last year. I tend to agree with that, but what has he played? 16, 18, 19 games in his career. Yeah. When Spencer's talking about 2017, just to go back to that, Chase Young hadn't played 32 games yet. Right. Sam Hubbard had played one season. So those guys had the benefit of taking what Larry Johnson teaches out here, and then it doesn't always have to be against Wisconsin. You're going to make some big plays. You're getting live reps against somebody who's not an Ohio State offensive lineman blocking you. They all need that. Even Tyreke Smith, as long as he's been here, what has he played? Probably 16, 17 real games.
That's a great example.
In 2019, Chase Young had one of my favorite Chase Young plays against Miami, Ohio. He knocked the ball out of his hand. They almost scored a touchdown off of it. And again, it was against Miami, Ohio. So even the guys you feel like, he's going to bring it against the Clemsons, the Alabamas, the Wisconsins in the Big Ten Championship game. They need the Miami, Ohio's on the schedule. They need those Akrons and Tulsas on the schedule, and even Rutgers and Maryland, because you can really make some hay there and really start to develop some chemistry with these guys along the defensive line. You can get in, mix and match who's with you and stuff like that. Those games are very important. They're just as important as practice, like you said.
Yeah, and I think you guys, I don't know if y'all agree or not, because we do disagree, but I think Zach Harrison's a different kind of dude. I mean, he claims he's the same guy, but there's something different about him. I'm just from a confidence standpoint, which I think will translate to the field. We all know that the biggest question on these guys, the defensive front last year was, the abbreviated year was lack of sacks, and sometimes lack of enough pressure to really mess things up. Of course, it came to fruition. It came to what's the word I'm looking for there? Fruition. Yeah. In the championship game when they really needed pressure on Mac Jones.
Did that game go poorly?
Yeah, but you understand. I mean, what's that old line? What goes around comes around, meaning it finally caught up with them, and that's what I am interested to see from the jump. Tyreke Smith and Zach Harrison. Yeah, I'm really interested in these freshmen, but I'm really interested to see if Zach Harrison and Tyreke Smith are going to become the sort of the terrors we think they could have become maybe a year ago.
They're at least carrying themselves like that, and I think if you're going to look at the comparisons to Bosa's or Chase Young, you knew from the second that they got here that they had an alpha mentality. They knew that they were the best defensive end in the country, and they were not going to be blocked by 2 or 3 people.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that Zach Harrison had that from day one when he got here, and he's had to maybe learn that. Again, nobody knows ever what's going directly through somebody's mind, but just our experiences around him were not the same as when Joey Bosa came in and he's like, well, I'm going to play right away and no one's going to stop me. So I think he's had to maybe grow into that and learn that. Certainly having Larry Johnson, we keep bringing that up, working with someone with his physical tools, that's going to help. Tyreke Smith hasn't had that problem. He's always been anointed as that 5-star potential first-round draft pick, but it's just been the injuries holding you back. So again, that's that potential buzzword. I just feel strange talking about a Larry Johnson unit that way, where it's unproven. It's not that I doubt that it will happen, because I expect that it's going to, but just, as you sit here in August, it's just a little vibe about it.
You use the key word there, key words. Larry Johnson, I mean, at this point, the guy gets the benefit of the doubt, and you know that he's going to have these guys ready to go. And I've written about it a number of times in the last few years. Every time the Buckeyes seem to need like a game from the Rushmen, they get it.
Oh yeah.
And whether it was the Penn State game in 2017 when they decided to just go nuts in the fourth quarter, they took over that game. That group has found ways to take over games and win them for the Buckeyes. And they may be called upon to do that in these first 2 weeks.
I'll tell you, a key word that Ryan Day had for us on Monday of this week was he was very impressed by the physicality, or the physical nature of what he saw in that scrimmage on Saturday. And that goes right back to the key parts of any football team, the offensive and defensive lines. He really liked how they got after each other. And, you know, we're talking about an offensive line that could be, again, we're talking potential, but could be, you know, fantastic, great, one of the elite in the country. And I think that bodes well for this defensive line getting a report like that.
Absolutely. I think that the defensive line here, one of the guys that I talked to more than anybody else today was Antoine Jackson, a guy that he's got the experience. He's got, you know, some good plays under his belt. He hasn't really put it all together, but he's been in Larry Johnson's room for 3 or 4 years now. I don't know if you guys know this. He went to Auburn first.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
In the blend.
Got a second recruitment here? Is that how that works?
Second recruitment. It's a pretty wild story. You guys should.
Did you cover that?
Maybe we should write about it. But
What's that? That's a.
he's the kind of guy.
That was last century.
Did he play lacrosse?
He did not.
That was in the previous decade.
But he's the kind of guy that can really power this unit that's really underrated. You've got Haskell Garrett, who's going to get a lot of attention. These defensive ends are going to get a lot of attention. Teron Vincent as a former 5-star guy. And you've got this 6th-year guy just kind of hanging around. You've got Jerron Cage, who's kind of just hanging around there. You've got a Ty Hamilton flying under the radar.
That sort of speaks to his point, though, doesn't it? Like, there's just guys hanging around, and it's not a normal feeling for Ohio State fans to head into a season going, okay, who's the guy on the line that's going to do it?
Right.
And I think that you have guys like that, but in my mind, if it's not someone like Ty Hamilton, if it's not one of these younger guys coming up, then the same problems that they've had in the last couple of years are maybe raise their head again. You've got to get a bull rusher in the middle. Ty Hamilton's the guy to do that in my mind. Antoine Jackson, Teron Vincent, Noah Potter, Jaron Cage, all these guys. The whole goal here for Larry Johnson, for Kerry Combs, for Matt Barnes, for Al Washington, rotate, rotate, rotate. They need them all. And I'm excited to see it tomorrow in the horseshoe.
Some guys get it sooner, some guys get it later. I mean, DeJuan Jones on the offensive side of the ball, there's a great example of a guy who has really risen in the last 6 months. And boy, you talk to these guys, defensive lineman guys, about him. I mean, today it was, you know, plaudits. I mean, this guy, so what's not to say that it can't, same thing can't be happening on the other side of the line. I really do believe it is.
All right, count up all the references to the last decade of Rushmen from this episode. We've got a lot of callbacks and a lot of analysis as this unit moving forward, a season opener.
We didn't even talk about Michael Hall, Tyreke Williams. I mean, there's a lot of guys.
But we would have been having the exact same conversation. I would have liked to talk about Noah Potter's move more, but all of this is exactly the same. We know that Ohio State has extremely talented people in that locker room back there and the best position coach in America. But we need them to go play against Minnesota so we can talk about it for sure, and then find out which units to compare them to in the past from Larry Johnson's career, as Spencer brought up for us earlier. That's Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. This, as always, is the Practice Report brought to you by Byers Auto. We will be down here on campus Wednesday morning as well, expecting to get a much longer look at the Buckeyes, so stay tuned for full coverage of that at lettermenrow.com. We will see you then.